Starting a new, realistic feeling city can be a daunting task, so I've put together this small city in a step-by-step build in the hopes that some of you might find it helpful. We'll build organic road layouts, a buzzing downtown, historic rowhouse districts, recreational hotspots, an industrial backbone, an active fishing harbour, apartment complexes, suburban housing, and suburban dining. And at each step, I've done my best to explain my thoughts and ideas behind my actions. You can apply many of these techniques without needing any mods, but I will list the most important ones in the description below, including links to the full mod list and save file. This took a while, so I'd be really happy if you'd hit the magic like button, comment with some feedback, and consider subscribing if you don't want to miss similar upcoming content. With all that said, let's dive in. Now this is a nice map indeed. Miles and miles of rugged beaches, beautiful bays and coastline, lots of archipelagos, and a nice set of existing infrastructure in place, which I'm not really going to touch all that much because it's really nicely laid out and it feels pretty realistic to scale. We're gonna jump right in, so moving right up here where we've got a couple of unlocked starter tiles, and we're more specifically going to build the city right here. First things first, we'll be changing the map theme. Currently using the default vanilla theme, we're going to opt for the Remo map theme instead. And I'm gonna increase the tiling just a little bit, as I think that looks a little better, about 120. We're gonna map out the two main streets or arterials of Meadow Bay. The first one being Water Street. It is going to intersect with this low capacity highway, follow much of the coastline, and then intersect once again with this highway. The other arterial is going to be Center Avenue, which is going to intersect down here by Water Street and connect up to the highway right about here. And then we'll have what I guess is technically a bit of a ring road even. We'll call this Schihurlis Street. It's gonna be named after Chris Schihurlis from Heat, and if you get that reference, I'm so proud. But yeah, it kind of just encapsulates the downtown core of Meadow Bay, which is saying a lot as it's not gonna be a big city. Moving on to all the many roads intertwining between these main arterials. We're gonna use really tight grid roads. It's going to feel really old as well. No massive blocks in this city. So one thing we're gonna just start off doing is grabbing the Suburban 2-lane road and just kind of moving at least one main road through within the inner ring roads here. So I'll just kind of intersect here and add a bit of an angle because I'm not trying to make a strict grid, and we'll just do, I guess, one additional one like this. But then I'm going to quickly mix it up with a few really narrow one-way roads as well to just kind of really showcase the small road layout in play here, just to kind of break up some of these roads a little more. And as this lower portion of the downtown is very much going to be like the commercial center and heart of Meadow Bay, we're just gonna add a bit more street side parking to kind of showcase this. So we just made sure to upgrade this to a more dedicated parking road, and then we'll just add a quick straight segment here as well. This also has the added benefit of making this block a little easier to work with. We'll also need a bit of extra parking alongside this straight segment of Water Street. So for this purpose, we're going to grab Road Builder and just make a custom version of the 2-lane road. So 90-degree parking. Yeah, I guess that should sort of work. And then I think we can actually just expand the width of one of the sidewalks until we can get a 90-degree base in place here. So let's see. Yep, that is pretty much exactly what we want. So we'll just click again and say place more. And then I'm going to, let's see, I'm gonna upgrade just to kind of flip the direction. And I think I'll do these 2 segments. I'll add in just a couple of additional segments of these just for some added variety. And it looks sweet when it's all being utilized by cars, of course. So I think down here we'll just get a small segment added. Maybe this will be a small public beach of sorts. And then perhaps a segment here as well. While I like the overall feel of this road network, I think some of the blocks turned out just a bit too sizable, especially if I'm to utilize some row housing in between some of these inner city blocks, which is very much the plan. So I'm just gonna see if I can divide what used to be 2 blocks into 3 blocks, which should be fairly easy. So if we just bring a road through like this, and maybe down to the new node we've got between the regular street and the parking street here, and do just 1 more of these. Just like this. And then I think we're going to flip the direction of these roads right here, just to be opposite. Alright, so I think we're going to place down some service buildings and do a bit of development in the central part of Meadow Bay before we transition into mapping out some of the suburban road layouts. And my hopes is that the overall feel and look of the density of the central part of the city will help make the suburban transition a little easier. So kicking off with a few service buildings. We'll start by getting a fire station in place, and despite all the magnificent choices in between DLCs and creator packs, we're actually opting for the vanilla firehouse that the game initially shipped with. I just kind of like the aesthetic, at least for the type of build I'm trying to do here. So I'm just gonna freely place it on its own lot here, bringing it back from the road a little bit. Kind of like this, and I'll do a bit of detailing later, but we've got that in place now, and it's already a great addition, setting the tone here for something really old and quite cozy as well. I'm not quite as fond of the vanilla police station, not because of the architecture, which I actually do like, just because the asset is way too big with all the parking and trees and fencing. So I think in this case we're going to opt for the northeast themed police station, which is just beautiful. Now it is brick, so that's what it is, but we can't avoid some brick structures here in Meadow Bay either way. And I think we're going to utilize this as a corner lot, just because it's such a beautiful structure. Continuing the red brick theme by adding the Eastbourne medical chambers. This is a custom asset of PDX mods, which looks pretty wonderful indeed, and I think it plays pretty nicely in with the police station as well. Okay, more red brick for the school as well, this time the Netherlands Region Pack Elementary School, and I kind of want that facing Shirley Street, but I'm just gonna bring it back a little bit as it's a bit of a special building, so that we can have a dedicated parking road out front. So I think I'm just going to kind of be expanding a few of these streets just to kind of branch out a bit further away from the center of Meadow Bay. And then I'm going to utilize this type of street here for the dedicated parking in front of the school. Well, let's see. I kind of want to do something fun here. So we're going to branch off this suburban road of sorts. But then I think we are going to transition down to the existing crossing right here, just making this a little more complex, but probably just downgrading that so that it doesn't have the same amount of dedicated parking. Disable snapping so we can get the almost perfect transition, kind of like this. And then I don't want parking on the side here, so I'll just quickly add a bit of grass. Once again, adding a couple of upgrades we definitely don't actually need, but do really look the part. We've got a couple of different dev care options. I want to place 2 functional and 1 non-functional, which is going to be something else entirely. Gonna explain that in a second. The first addition is going to be the Raven Undertaker Funeral Home. This is once again a wonderful asset of PDX mods. I'm just gonna kind of line that close to the police station, but facing the back road here from Water Street. Any upgrades? No, so we'll just keep it as is. The other addition I would like to add is the small cemetery we got with a sort of recent patch. And I think in this case, I kind of want to like have it pretty close to the coast. Actually, I'm going to just complicate things by just kind of aligning it a little bit, so we'll need an additional road for it. Yoink. Oh yes, it's got a couple of upgrades, and I think I'm just gonna add this one here, and then we're going to use these small one-way streets to kind of just make this a lot more interesting. So we're gonna get this connection, and then I think we're also just going to frame the upgraded part. And then for the non-functional death care, we're going to use a prop version of the vanilla crematorium. Not as death care, but as sort of the city hall of some sort. So we'll get that nicely placed. You know, politicians, feeling important, seats of power and all that. Obviously, as a prop, it's got no detailing or anything, so we'll need to just add a quick surface and whatnot. But I think architecturally it kind of fits in with the rest of Meadow Bay. And I've mentioned this quite a few times before, but one of the reasons I like to place some of my service buildings without really aligning them to the existing road layout is that it kind of just forces me to do something a little more interesting. Like we can imagine all of this just being kind of the same block as these are, but that's just not going to be possible now with the addition of the school and this dedicated front street to it. And it's very much the same with the small cemetery. So it's just a small thing that kind of forces me to be a little more creative and makes sure that my road layouts look, I guess, a little more organic and less cookie cutter. And with that said, I think we should add a few additional roads out here so the school and the cemetery feels a little better integrated. Well, I think it's fair to say they didn't have a New York-style commissioner's plan for this road grid, but that's not really a bad thing. That's a good thing even, I think. Alright, so I've just quickly added a small transformer station out here, and in conjunction with the water tower as well as some outside connections, we're now fully covered in terms of electricity, sewage and water supply. Temporarily, I think, because we're importing it from the outside, which can be pretty expensive, but it is going to work in the short term. Excitingly, this means we can start developing the actual town of Meadow Bay. In terms of the architecture, I don't want to hunker down on one specific country, but rather draw inspiration from much of North America, Canada, Australia, as well as New Zealand. And more specifically, I want a mixture of timbered and brick buildings throughout much of the city. Which I think is going to look fun, and I do feel we kind of have the assets needed. So the densest part is going to be this main segment between Brook Street, Water Street and Center Ave. So kind of these 4 blocks here where we already have some medical services as well as the police station. But no skyscrapers or anything super fancy. So let's have a look at our many options. We're gonna kick off with some mixed-use buildings, as much of this is going to be dominated by mixed-use and commercial, maybe a few residential properties mixed in as well. And trying to replicate a really old style, we're gonna kind of work our way up from the smallest width buildings we have available, so that should be a single tile. We can utilize some of the UK-themed region pack mixed-use buildings for this purpose, as I think they would fit in with this theme quite well. I'm going for some of the buildings that have more, I guess, general or anonymous roof structures, because they're going to feel less specific to the UK. I'll also be adding in some of these custom assets from PGX mods. Now these are really nice, as they also have corner lots, and they pretty much fit exactly what we want. They're very generic looking. One thing to keep in mind is that the Old Town themed zones are actually located within the residential tab of Find It, despite being mixed use. So yeah, that's just something to notice if you want to utilize these and be able to filter for them. And there might be a few in here I can manage to squeeze in. without mixing up the style too much. We're gonna hit play to allow people and businesses to actually start moving into Meadow Bay. And as we increase the width and thus the lot size or footprint of the buildings to 2 tiles, I want to be mindful about the overall height and perceived density of the buildings. So while many of the North American themed vanilla mixed-use buildings wouldn't be too bad in terms of the actual style, the architecture, they're just a little too bulky. So I'm more likely to opt for a mix of the Northeast and Southwest packs instead. A building like this mixed level 5 from the Northeast pack is technically the same height as the vanilla example I just showcased, but it just feels less bulky and it's a little more detailed, and I think the roof ties really well with some of the UK theme stuff we've been utilizing. So I think I'm gonna place that over here as one of the taller buildings with a pretty great view of the overall Bay Area. I also want to utilize the level 2 version of this building because it has a much less detailed or fancy roof structure, so it feels like 2 completely different buildings, which is perfect. It's that added diversity that we need. I'm gonna bring some of the developments along this segment of Water Street just a little back because I kind of want to turn this into a bit of a promenade with a nice red brick surface, a few planters, some clothes, shopping racks, all that good stuff, maybe a few dining options as well, some tables and whatnot. So I just want to make sure I have the space for this. We're also going to need to use the recolor mod to kind of streamline the color scheme here just a little bit. It's a bit all over the place currently, but I think we're going to group that with the promenade detailing and just continue with the development of downtown. We've got a ton of great residential options in the Northeast and Southwest packs, starting all the way at the lowest tier, so that would be row housing. So I want to add a few of these to the downtown area of Meadow Bay, but not too many. They need to be kind of standout features whenever I place them, because I think most of the row housing outside of the downtown, so in the inner city ring surrounding downtown, are actually going to be timbered structures. I have a custom set that I can't wait to use, so I'm just gonna sprinkle some of these throughout. So these would have been more of the prominent developments during the city's heyday, and not something we see frequently on all the outer blocks. We also finally have a 1 tile wide commercial asset in the shape of this fish and chip shop, so I definitely want to include this, just because of how unique it is. Gonna need to just manually get it properly aligned with its surroundings, but that is just such a nice, authentic looking asset. While I mentioned that much of the inner city areas surrounding the downtown is going to be made of primarily of row housing stock, I would like to have a few medium density apartment buildings kind of face at this segment of Water Street where they directly face the bay and some beautiful views, potentially a marina added in the future. I just think it would make sense for developers to feel that there would be additional demand for these kind of areas, so they can, take a greater risk and invest in some more fancy buildings. So I'm hopeful we've got some old town stuff we can add, and otherwise just some brick stuff from the Northeast and Southwest themed packs. I think downtown could use a few parks and maybe even a few surface parking lots. Now, in terms of the parks, I don't want to overdo it because I think I'm going to turn this into a park of some sort. And we do have plenty of parking lots as well, so maybe just a few added to some of these empty lots. But one park I would love to add is going to be this Edwardian coffee kiosk I grabbed from PDX Mods. And I kind of feel like this location would be absolutely perfect. So let's just see if we can squeeze that into this lot. Now that is nice and cozy. And almost the perfect location, I'd say. Then I'll just be adding a square pocket park to this nice location here. Could place a fancy building as well, but it's a town of history. It might have had times where it wasn't doing all that well and some of the historical architecture was demolished because of a lack of preservation efforts. So I'm adding that in, and we can of course change the surface to kind of match the red brick we will be adding alongside the promenade here. I also want to see if I can just add an urban pocket park. It has a few dining options or coffee options, which I think is really cool as well. So I'll just find another corner lot where we can kind of smush this one in. Maybe right here as you kind of enter downtown could be fun. But not on the corner, I'm just going to add it here, I think. As for the surface parking, I've got some pretty easy to use and fun options, once again off of PDX mods. Like some of these narrow parking lots, which as the name implies are pretty narrow and can be kind of squeezed into some otherwise awkward spaces where the vanilla parking stuff just wouldn't really fit. So I think that's really nice to add to the city as well. I mean, surface parking is never nice, but it feels kind of realistic to just have a bit of it. So I'm just gonna see if I can find at least one additional lot. Maybe this 1x4 fenced parking, see if I can kind of squeeze it in here. I hoped to also kind of fit a row house of some sort next to the fish and chip shop. So I'm gonna have to kind of see if I can kind of fit everything I need. But if I just move this as much over here as I can, I might be able to get the row house in place as well. Oh yeah, I think I found just the asset I need. Perfect. So besides the fish and chip shop, I think we need more low density commercial, not just within downtown, but also along Center Avenue, as it's like the main arterial leading into town, and maybe a few commercial establishments along this stretch of Water Street as well, as it's a little more touristy and built up. So I think we're gonna dive into some of the signature stuff. And I need to find the artsy draft bar somewhere, because I think that would be perfect for Water Street. And here we've got it. Nice hip place. So plenty of dining and drink options alongside this waterfront segment, which I think is really fitting. It's probably a slightly touristy upscale area. I want to add the art supply store as well, keeping with that hip vibe, but I think it's slightly too big for this waterfront segment, so I'd rather just kind of move into Center Avenue and kind of get that added on one of the corner lots. I also want to get the Heath Pub with lounge placed, but I think in our narrative we're gonna kind of imagine it as a seaside hotel instead. And we're gonna add even more pubs as hotels, but Australian pubs are hotels, I think. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Let's just get these added because I think they're wonderful and they kind of fit the theme of this old waterfront area. So I think this one can be placed right here, and then we have a smaller one which I kind of want to anchor on this corner. But it is not perfectly aligned to the road, as you can probably tell. But we're just gonna change the road to make sure it's properly aligned. That's the direction we're taking. I also like this pretty modern infill I added here. Some recent demand, some recent development, which I think is really nice. So let's make this road network fit by just adding in this tiny small alley with a bit of parking and getting rid of many of these crosswalks so it doesn't look crazy. Another beautiful Australian pub just waiting to be squeezed into this downtown lot. And then we can squeeze in a Whataburger almost right next to the school. Brutal marketing. And I do like to add these small alleys for some of these parking-rich commercial assets. It's just something you gotta kind of keep a watch on to see if you've got some weird traffic flows. But the main reason I added, of course, is to like get the actual intersection here and the opening of the sidewalks, which I think looks really nice. We're adding the Go Bank local branch to the corner of Shirley's and Chestnut Street, and the European themed Villa City to this part of Water Street, just to continue the posh waterfront vibes. And I'll just be adding another small, narrow one-way street to kind of frame it. Probably just grabbing the same type of alley we utilized right next to it. Once again, getting rid of the crossings so it doesn't look all that substantial. As the lobster tail screams maritime ambience and marina living, I'm going to add it out alongside this peninsula, which is going to feel a little weird at first. So it's very much a work in progress, but it's also my commitment to actually getting a proper marina added to the city, because then I think this restaurant can kind of frame the outermost edge of the marina, which is then going to be within this little bay here, which I think is going to be really nice. So I'm just going to make sure we've got a bit of a road layout connecting this stuff so that we can add it later on. Adding just one more hotel to the recreational part of Water Street before commencing a few modifications of the current road segments. So I kind of just want to replicate some of the more dedicated street parking we've got over here for maybe just this segment here where the shoreline is a little wider, I guess. So let's just see if we can get this upgraded and kind of keep it all aligned. And then I wouldn't mind having a tree-lined median segment out here as well, which I think I have to kind of create from scratch. I don't think I have something like this with Road Builder, so we're just gonna call this median 2-lane road, and we're basically just gonna drop a median in the very center. We're gonna make that 5 meters wide, and then we're gonna get rid of some of the parking on either of the sidewalks. So we'll get rid of the parking and reduce the width to 3.5. So this is one way of just keeping the total width of this street slightly in check. Maybe we'll just do that for one side actually, so that there is parking on the other. I think this works. I just need to add the grass decoration as well. Of course, we could do this with the road upgrade tools as well, but might as well just do it with the road editor or road builder, sorry, while we're at it. So let's just get 2 more segments of this with the complementary parking. Yoink. And let's see, we'll add a segment down here as well, I think. And then I'll just be adding some large leafy trees to the median. And the reason I'm just going to add these manually with Anarchy is that I ensure that the trees have some rotation then. If I utilize the upgrade tool to just kind of add them to the actual street, then they won't be rotated, which can look just a little bit odd. Having all the trees be completely aligned rotation-wise. Now that's nice. I did mention wanting to utilize some of the Bridges and Ports DLC commercial waterfront assets because I really haven't gotten the chance to utilize these yet. And I think we're just gonna add a few to the downtown core of Meadow Bay before we continue to some of the row housing districts beyond, because we need to kind of get that look sorted as well. A few of these are very, very interesting because the age of them can be a little hard to define. I mean, they could be older, repurposed structures, but they can definitely be younger stuff as well, I guess you could say. So I think I'm just gonna try to add a few of these in and kind of see how it all pans out. Like, look at this one. I think this could go for a really old building that's just kind of gotten a fresh coat of paint or something like that. So it is a corner lot, so I'm just gonna see if I can align it and then bring the police station a little back because it doesn't need all this much space. And I know we've got something similar which isn't a corner lot, so I think I'm actually gonna remove this Old Town asset just to kind of replace it with a specific one I have in mind, which can also look really old. So we've either got this one or we have this version. I'm probably gonna opt for this one. That is just a nice looking asset. Once again, we definitely have some recolor work ahead of us, but we'll get to that later. For now, we just need to get some of this placed. I really like this building as well. And once again, this could be a pretty modern development, but it also could just be something really old in timber that has been renovated and repurposed into a bit of commercial. And we'll get another one added to this corner of Center Avenue, right across from the bank and next to the much beloved Whataburger as well. And this set is just surprisingly versatile. I mean, this looks like one of the archetypical neon lit hotels of Miami Beach, which means I'm not going to utilize it, but it's a really cool asset nonetheless. I think I'm going to add this to this corner lot between Center and Garnet Street. I'm just going to quickly add a few additional segments of the median 2-lane road before diving into some of our row house districts. So I'm just going to add that to the designated park space here, with the leafy trees, of course. Alright, so all of this commercial development has, to my surprise, resulted in nearly 600 jobs. And against a population of just under 800, we're about ready to expand the city with lots of new residential quarters, more specifically the timbered row houses I mentioned in the very beginning. So I'm just gonna quickly showcase the specific styles that are going to make up the bulk of row homes here in Meadow Bay. So we're going to filter for the USA Northeast pack, a width of 1 obviously, and we have a bunch of options here, lots of brick options, lots of timbered options, and the specific ones I would like to use are called 04. So it's these ones. Now I'm just going to place a block and kind of explain some of my thought process behind how these things are going to pan out. The first thing to note is that these row homes technically aren't wall to wall. There is a bit of distance and some pathways in between each of the lots here. I kind of want to change that up a little bit by creating, I guess you could call them duplexes or even triplexes. So the idea here is basically just to bring some of these together and then others are going to be more standalone. And it's basically just to make this look like a more, I guess, unique or interesting area, really. This has the added benefit, I guess, of upping the density of this area just a little bit, as I'll be able to fit in more homes than I otherwise would. With that being said, though, I obviously have a building too much on this side of the street. And we'll move on to the other side and do something akin to the very same. I'm also going to add in some different types of developments in some of the places where I think it's fitting, maybe some 2-tile wide apartment buildings, a few mixed-use buildings and whatnot. So I'm just going to mix it up a little bit, making sure it's not all these row homes. Another set I might mix in here and there will be from Smiley's, who created some wonderful row homes. Once again, most of these are timbered. Specifically, we've got a couple of styles here. I'm just gonna place out a few of these so that you guys can have a look at them. So some of these can be pretty easily mixed in with this housing stock right here. So I mean, right here we have a bit of an extra gap here due to a weird lot size. So we might as well just kind of bring this over and kind of mix that in. And this one mixes in really well as well. So I'm just gonna utilize a few of these throughout to kind of increase the diversity of the housing stock. And don't worry, we're going to do some significant recoloring as well. I really do love the color palettes of these, but I don't want them to be this dramatic. So most of these are just going to be red timbered, kind of like these ones, I guess. So you'll have me kind of move in and blotting out some of the more interesting color schemes, to say the least. But with that said, I think we're gonna speed things up a bit and get a few additional blocks developed, and I'm pretty confident this is going to look so nice when it's all wrapped up. Alright, so I obviously knew that increasing the housing stock would increase the population, but I wasn't quite expecting a 1500 or 1700 people increase thus far, and it's still rising. Now, needless to say, we need to start working on some better employment options again, because unemployment has just broke 50%. Nice. Of course, it was all worth it though, because look at how nice these new blocks are looking. And as mentioned, I did want to kind of mix in a few different types of developments just to add a bit more character. So I imagined that here by Water Street, with this view here and easy access to the beach, why not have a bit of higher density added in? But otherwise, I really kept it mainly to the style of the row houses I showcased before the time-lapse. I did change things up right here by the school though. I kind of had this block which wasn't quite deep enough to feature these 3 tiles deep row houses. So I figured I'd try to do like a unique, special, potentially single developer build even. I imagine there'd be a fun story behind this block, and it kind of mixes up everything, so I think it's a pretty nice look as well. And I think overall this is about the extent we'll see the row house type density branch out from downtown here in Meadow Bay. So I think my plan is kind of to turn these narrow blocks here near Brookhaven Street into a recreational space, some really simple parks, and then kind of just let Brookhaven Street be the like the border where we have a transition from the row housing to low density single family housing. I'll potentially continue adding some commercial stuff alongside Center Avenue as it continues towards the National Road out here. But of course I'm not gonna add any more housing before we work on some better employment options. And I think something I'd like to start with is adding a bit of a fishing industry. I don't expect this to add a ton of jobs, but it is going to add a ton of flavor and character to the city. So it's kind of trying to do 2 things at once, I guess. So we're just gonna start with a bit of terraforming and then getting some fishing industry placed. I'm just gonna add a quick dedicated road segment to kind of attach the fishing industry main buildings to, so that they don't border directly near Water Street. I just kind of prefer that approach. And then I wonder if I need 2 of these buildings. If I can just do with the 1, I would like to. So I think we're just gonna try placing the 1, and then we'll see if we can just continue upgrading it. I do love the fishing industry as a concept, except for the inland fishing industry. I think that looks awful. And I'm really not a fan of this pier system. The fact you have to drag these out in a certain way to, you know, even just get the ability to get the fishing stuff working. It just feels too restrictive, and I kind of miss a bit of flexibility, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I'll do my best though to kind of get some of it dragged out, so hopefully some of it is going to look all right. But yeah, it's just a little clunky and just takes up too much space. I'm just gonna change and expand the road layout a little bit, because I've got some ideas with the cold storage upgrades we can add. And hopefully these add additional workplaces as well, because I think there's only like 80 jobs or so within the actual fishing building, which isn't all that much, to be honest. So getting at least 1 additional road here, and maybe even something to move right next to this pier. And seems like this one is gonna be a little tricky, so I think I'm just gonna branch out right here instead, get rid of this segment, and use move it to just kind of bring this down and see if I can just kind of force the terraforming here on this side of the wooden pier, and that seems to work. So grabbing this building, we're gonna add the large cold storage, if I can fit it, that is. And I think we have just about the space we need to actually get this to fit, which is gonna be nice. It's a nice addition. Yoink. And then if I could add the medium one as well, maybe as an extension to this. That would also be a lot of fun. So let's see if we can get that placed right here. Very nice. I think we'll use one of the other keys for this segment and then potentially just kind of reduce that to some of these boulders acting as a breakwater. So I'm just going to quickly try to achieve that. And then I'll be switching out some of the textures here for something that's, yeah, just a little more grungy, I guess. But also integrates a little better into the roads I've utilized down here. Yeah, no workplaces just yet, but then again, we ain't got no fishing going on. So let's get that changed by setting up our first fishing area way out here in the open bay. Maybe right here. And I'm just going to use Anarchy because with Anarchy I can map out a much greater area than I otherwise would be able to. So the boats are going to travel a greater... They're just going to be able to navigate this bigger area, which is going to look a little cooler, I think. We'll just make sure to get the seaway connected to the major one here, but also, of course, into the actual bay. Seems like we can at the very least get 4 fishing routes added, which should be sufficient to see plenty of activity down here and plenty of jobs, hopefully, as well. I'm probably also going to add some of the fishing boats just as props, just to kind of make it look a little more detailed. I am going to allow the fishing boat and small fishing boat for 3 of the lines, and then I'm also going to allow the net fishing boat for one of the other ones. It's a slightly larger vehicle or vessel, so I don't want too many of those, but it would be nice just to have one of the fishing routes utilize it just for the added variety. And look at it go. I mean, it is such a nice gameplay feature, but yeah, parts of the implementation could be a little more flexible, I feel. And I hope you can see why I prefer to use the Anarchy mode to map out a really large fishing area, because the fishing boats actually try to utilize much of the space, so they're not going to be cluttered up in like a small space. It's going to look and feel a lot more realistic. But as our population is approaching 3,000, I guess it's safe to say that the 80 odd jobs added by the fishing industry really hasn't made even a dent in unemployment. Which means we're gonna have to think in a much greater scale. So what I think we need is a pretty sizable dedicated industrial district. Now I just need to select the location. I think this general area might just be a good fit. We already own most of the land, so with a bit of terraforming we don't have to purchase an additional tile. We can make sort of a small port facility, and we should be able to get the train tracks added over here as well. So they're just gonna have to be kind of rerouted just a little bit, but otherwise it should be a good setup for a new industrial estate. I'll be adding a few dedicated keys and then turning other road segments into just upgradable keys, just to have a bit of variety in how the key system looks down here. Potentially have this segment kind of just keyed off with some boulders as well, just for even more variety. So seeing as this key design has the regular vanilla 2-lane road texture, I'm just gonna continue that, and we'll treat this as like the main road leading into this industrial area. So we're just gonna make a simple connection to the national road cutting through here. And we're also just gonna use a couple of different road types to map out a fairly simple industrial area. So we have a few roads to attach some parking and, most importantly, some light manufacturing too. I think a bit of oil infrastructure could be a fun look. And to just ensure that things could be functional in the future, if I continue this city and add a rail yard, I'm going to add the mini train oil stop. This will be from Tygon's rail infrastructure pack or train infrastructure pack. So I'm just going to get that placed and make room for it, of course. Now this has a single line connector, which is really nice. So I'll just grab the appropriate track, which is just going to be this two-way train track. And then I kind of want a bit of a small rail yard of sorts as well. It doesn't need to be right here by the petrochemical stuff. It could be at a bit of a different location, because that might look even more interesting. So for this purpose, I'm going to grab a 4-line rail track. I created this red road builder, very simple to set up. Everyone can do it as long as you have the mod. And I think I'm just gonna drag that out at one of these places. Now obviously I'm gonna remove the parking lot road here so that it doesn't obstruct this little yard. Potentially we can use this 3-lane segment as well right next to it. Then we can keep just a bit of the parking, I guess, something like this, and then I'll just get that connected up to this segment. As I was only able to stack 3 bi-directional tracks next to each other in Road Builder and not 4, it means that these don't have any connections here by the end. So a quick way to just solve that is to just grab the 3-lane version basically and just add a small stop segment to the very end. Oh, that's interesting. A police cruiser just made its way out here to check the new train station, despite no activity at all. Just checking, making sure everything's all right, I guess. Let's do a bit of quick terraforming to see how this area will actually look with all the water added in. It should mimic like a small industrial port, which I think is always such a fun thing to add to a city. It adds so much character. And it's super fun and pretty simple to build as well. So the current situation... Are you making another round trip? Come on. Go do your job, man. Okay. Anyways, a quick note on current employment options. Almost 800 jobs, hopefully about to rise dramatically. As the cruiser is leaving once more. Let's kick off with a few signature buildings. There's a couple of new industrial signature buildings that I haven't used yet, one being the livestock processing facility, or the energy drink bottling plant, which is almost a perfect fit for this lot here. Now that's nice, let's get that placed. Then I've grabbed a couple of custom things from PDX mods as well. I've got a cargo harbor complex warehouse. So this is a very clever asset. It repurposes one of the warehouses you can add as an upgrade to your port. And it just turns that into a signature industrial building you can utilize anywhere. And it looks really nice. 126 employees, not bad at all. And the bottling plant, 42. Yeah, that's pretty bad. It does have an upgrade though, a shipping and receiving department. Oh, that looks nice. I'll add that in hopes of it didn't add more jobs, okay? Oh well. Now, I'm not an expert in the grain business at all, and I think I would expect to see a structure like this in a rural environment. But it's just a cool looking asset. It is so tempting to try to just get this added in for, I don't know, easy shipping of grain, I guess. I'm going to get rid of a bit of the yard here, then just add a quick additional road and see if I can kind of fit in this grain industrial feature. It just looks so nice. I added the parking road so I could kind of make it face that, so that the tall structure is closer to the dock. Yoink. Is this completely unrealistic? I don't know, but I'm adding a ship definitely for the easy transportation of grain. It even has an up... Come on, there is no crime out here. That is incredible. I can add a boxing, shipping, and sugar upgrade. Whoa. Okay. I mean, that's almost too much, isn't it? I'm adding it. Of course it didn't add any more workplaces. Come on. Let's just quickly get a small cargo ship prop added. I'm not gonna do a lot of detailing out here. I'm just trying to add jobs, but I think this would be very fitting right next to this cereal mill. Oh, it's a cereal mill. Yeah, I definitely don't think it should be located here, but it does look the part, doesn't it? It's too bulky with the upgrade though. I'm gonna get rid of that, I think. A few additional special buildings to add. One will be the waste collection center, which we're just gonna plug in right here. Make sure we upgrade this road to a wide suburban alley so that it has proper connectivity. And then in terms of an additional signature building, I think I want to add like a diner of some sort for like the local workers to grab a bite. Don't think this would be completely unrealistic, so let's just get something added. Maybe right, let's see, we'll add it right here, I think. Yoink. Now we need more generic industry. This is what is really going to up the job count of this area. So for this purpose, I'm going to use Mimonti's Clean Industrial Manufacturing mod, and as the name implies, it's basically a reskinned version of the vanilla industry, but without all that much air pollution. So most of the chimneys have been cut out and the air pollution has been drastically reduced for these assets. I'll probably leave a few empty lots in between for a bit of detailing later and for a bit of surface parking as well. So let's just get a bunch of stuff added. I don't have a good defense. I just couldn't help myself but to detail up this industrial side just a little bit because it's too much fun. Now, to be fair, I've kind of made it a goal in life, next to being a good friend, a good human, and a good husband, to not treat my industrial areas in City Skylines 2 as an afterthought. And I think that goal is as honorable as the other ones I mentioned. And I guess it's so ingrained by now that I just can't do the plug and done thing, you know, adding some quick industry at the edge of the map just to increase the job count and satisfy demand. Do you feel called out? Yeah, I'm looking straight through your soul. I know you're a sinner. Now, it took some getting used to, but yeah, I think I'm getting pretty good at getting some quick detailing done to these areas. Either way, the most important bit, of course, is the functionality of it, the actual job count. I am going to guess we've added 850, maybe 900 jobs. If you've got a guess, just kind of shoot it out in the air. Just yell it, actually. And if your significant other or your cat looks weird at you, know it was for a good cause. Let's map it out as a district and we'll see what the actual count is. All right, so 630-ish jobs. So I guess I was off by about 30%, which is pretty bad. I think I'll name this Southport. It's pretty simple, but it is technically southeast of Meadow Bay. More importantly than the total job count is how it affected the city or the region as a whole, though, and it's looking pretty good. Seems like we brought down unemployment by about 30-ish% by the addition of all this. We could use, you know, even more jobs, but we could do a bit of everything now, which is pretty much what we aim to achieve. We are making an actual profit. Don't you just love to see it? A little sooner than I expected, honestly, especially with the spending we committed to some of these service upgrades that we, at least initially, really didn't need and still don't need. We've got a ton of empty capacity at the school. Either way, we're about ready to expand Meadow Bay with its first layer of suburbs, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Because it's really just gonna tie everything in together and kind of make the scale feel a lot more realistic. But before we dive into building millennial crushing unaffordable single family housing, we're gonna build some slightly more affordable apartment complexes at first. These are gonna help with a fun transition from the more build-up environment of the inner city to the suburbs, and they're just gonna add a ton of character. Now, these are going to be what I like to call single developer complexes. So think in terms of public housing or just like urban renewal stuff. You kind of know the deal. Pretty simple stuff, pretty affordable. And it's going to add a ton of character, and it's going to help kind of break up the monotony of the suburban sprawl, which is so easy to kind of fall prey to. So what we're gonna do is select a few blocks, maybe just one as a start, like this one, and then plop down some of these apartment complexes and see how it looks. Now there's a specific Australian themed unit block here I'd love to utilize. Apparently it's called a 6-pack, but if Australians refer to pubs as hotels or the other, they're just gonna do their thing, aren't they? Anyways, this one is about 6 tiles deep, and it does include a bit of parking. So we might be able to achieve a bit of a fun pattern here. So instead of having them wall to wall, we're just gonna try to place them with 2 tiles in between. Then we're gonna flip them so that we can also align them to Park Street, and we'll see if the back sides here and parking will line up all right, or if it's gonna look wonky. While I think this looks really nice, it does kinda compromise the density of this block, which is a little, I guess, counterintuitive, as it's meant to be a fairly dense, cheap offering. So if we're being a little cheeky, we're just gonna move in with better bulldozer, select remove sub-elements, and then maybe just get rid of the parking on every other one of these. This should allow us to make something a little more interesting, like just kind of overlap them slightly. So it kind of connects the back streets here as well, which is a pretty fun look, honestly. So I think this is the better solution. Obviously, it's a little more custom, having to utilize better bulldozer. So you can kind of choose to opt out of this and just go with the regular placement to keep it simple, but I think I prefer this. It is going to allow us to squeeze in maybe 2 additional buildings. We'll see. I probably have to get rid of a bit of fencing as well. And we're really not looking to do a lot of detailing here because the assets are just going to work on their own, basically. So I'm just going to add in a custom parking lot, which also has a few trash can props and whatnot, which is a perfect fit for this area. And then probably just grab one of the like the grass surface that's being utilized here, if I can find it, that is, so I can filter for just the surface. Grass surface 01. And this should be one of those where I can just kind of paint out the entire block. It shouldn't move above or kind of cover up any of the road markings. Now that is nice. And yeah, I'm probably just gonna move the parking lot because I kind of want to utilize the fence as part of it. I think that's a nice touch. That's nice. Now we just need a few trees and that's it. We might as well check for the final touch whether it makes sense to just kind of bring in an otherwise useless alley into the parking lot here, just to kind of get this set up with the sidewalk created. Oh yes, and we're just gonna call this P11 to designate a parking lot, just as we did right here. So this is not Sunset Lane, it's P, I don't know, 24. There we go. And that's pretty much a wrap. A ton of fun to create, super simple, and I feel it looks really, really realistic. And in the context of why I wanted to have these areas plopped in, I think it's going to really tie in well with the surrounding suburban developments. Yeah, I'm such a fan of these areas. They just add so much for so little time, which is why I think we need an additional apartment complex. Probably alongside the train tracks maybe. Land being slightly bit cheaper and all that. And I want to get an idea of exactly the assets I intend to use here before I map out the road layout. As you know, things with scale and all that, where to place the parking lots, stuff like that come into play when mapping this out. So I did grab this North American themed, very, very simple apartment just recently, so why not add a few of these? So let's see, we'll have a parking road kind of face the train tracks, adding a bit of distance to the residential area as well, and then just have a few of these placed out. I like this placement, so it's gonna be interesting to see just how much in terms of changes we'll need to make when adding in the parking. I'm probably gonna do some one-way parking. Am I? Yeah, it's a little more slim to utilize. I don't think it's as realistic as having bi-directional parking, but I kind of sometimes I dislike the width of the bi-directional perpendicular parking road. So in those cases, I kind of prefer to use this version instead. So we're just gonna get these two segments in place, and then I think we're gonna connect it with the one-way alley as well. So let's go for a simple connection. Actually, we'll do like a dual connection on this side, just because that looks a little more interesting. And then we'll get this connected up. We'll get rid of the mass spamming crosswalks out here. We don't need all this good stuff added. And I'm probably going to actually downgrade or upgrade, depending on how much you like cars, the sidewalk street here to this national road type thingy instead. Because I think that's gonna make more sense in this slightly suburban location. And then I think we can have the sidewalks kind of start here. We're gonna utilize the very same super simple grass surface to just kind of add it to this entire complex here. And we'll just kind of use a cover of spruce trees or something that is quick and easy to plant and grows fast to kind of make the transition between this well manicured grass and the not so well manicured grass less obvious. So I'm just grabbing maybe a small brush, enabling anarchy so that I can really spam this thingy, and we'll just have a thick coverage here. Which I guess also makes this place a little nicer. And then we're just gonna do, actually I'm just gonna manually get the cover for the train tracks added as well. Maybe adding a few pathways is a super simple way of just adding some detailing. I've got this asphalt pedestrian path, which is a really small one, which you can make with Road Builder, or I think you can grab it from another user as well if you use the wonderful Discover feature in Road Builder. And this one is nice. It It kind of helps mix it up from utilizing the otherwise cool vanilla path all the time. I'm just gonna add a few of these. And then before adding trees, one additional bit of detailing that is completely unnecessary but really helps bring the realism of an area like this up is if you kind of paint over much of the roads with a darker layer of concrete or asphalt. It's gonna make it look a lot more modern. And with the area bucket tool, it's a fairly easy process as well. If you make sure to if you can, make sure to just cover up the road segments at the very least and none of the other surfaces. So clicking here, for instance, you can kind of see that darkens it, makes it look a little more modern. I'm probably going to use something even darker, but for now, I'm just going to make sure I get some of this added. So just using the replace tool to switch it out with this 75% black surface. And if you wonder where the manicured grass went, I had to delete that surface because it covered everything, which means that I couldn't select all of this. Yeah, which is a little weird, but as soon as I've gotten this fixed, I can just move back, grab the surface I need, and just kind of add this back in. The household calculations for both of these complexes feel super realistic, so 8 individual apartments in each of these and 6 individual apartments in each of these, so a much greater density compared to if we were just mapping it out as a suburban sprawl. Suburban sprawl is exactly what's coming up next, and I think we're going to make the road layout kind of distinguish itself from the more built-up environment by not having dedicated sidewalks. Oh yes, you get to walk on the road if you want to walk here at all. Now it's going to be pretty wide and obviously not have a ton of traffic, so I don't think the residents really mind. And for some reason I personally feel like it just kind of looks super cozy as well. These small suburban streets without sidewalks. I don't know, maybe some North American stuff has infested my brain, but yeah, that's just something I've always kind of enjoyed looking at or finding on Google Maps, so I like recreating it. So what I'm going to utilize in this case is I just kind of mapped out one main road here with sidewalks just to kind of maintain a bit of a road hierarchy. And then I'm going to grab one of my alleys with additional parking on the side. Let's see if I can track it down. So it's this one, my Suburban alley made with Road Builder. So just quickly, it is a regular bi-directional 2-lane road with parking on either side. And then I've just removed the sidewalks in Road Builder. In terms of the layout, some of it is going to follow a grid of sorts, but with some curvy, bendy segments, much like the rest of the inner city actually. And then I think I'll try to see if I can have like at least 7 zoning tiles between each of the streets, because that is going to allow a little more flexibility when we start placing the actual single family houses, because then I can utilize a lot size that is 3 or 4 tiles deep, which is, I find that to be a pretty good spot, especially for the custom zone we're going to utilize, but I'm going to show you that in just a second. For now though, let's start mapping out some of this stuff. So this really isn't the complete road layout, as I expect us to move beyond both of the highways as well. But I just kind of want to pause here to talk a bit about the suburban housing I'll be utilizing and some of my thought process. And the technique I'm going to use to actually get this placed. So utilizing Find It, I'm going to filter for Classic. Now this is a revamped theme of existing vanilla assets. Much like the clean industrial stuff we used by the Southport area. And you can very much just use the vanilla stuff as well, but these houses are just pretty nice when filtered like this. And then I have a key mapped in the Find It options so that each time I hit it, it is going to randomize from the selection I have visible. So it's gonna make it a little easier for me to very quickly add all these houses to these streets. Something else I'm gonna use is I'm going to filter for specific lot sizes. So for instance, I know I don't want lot sizes that are deeper than 4 basically. So I'm gonna turn this up to 5 and I'm gonna flip this like this. So I'm ensuring that I only get lot sizes that are 4 or less in terms of depth. It's a little awkward because I get these 2 lot size houses as well, which are probably too small. So I might kind of mix it up and sometimes just filter directly for 3 and sometimes directly for 4. In terms of lot width though, I'm pretty confident that for these inner suburban suburbs, these inner suburbs, I don't want houses that are more than 3 tiles wide, or maybe 2 even. And then as we move beyond the highways, we can continue. We can kind of move up to a bigger lot size, which I think it's a small thing, but I think it's visually going to be noticeable and makes sense in the context of land just being a little cheaper further away from the center. Of course, there's only really one way to find out how this is actually going to look, so let's get plopping. There's obviously going to be some repetition and whatnot when you're trying to really speed do this process, and some of the color schemes can be a little wild, so I'm gonna move through as with the other districts and kind of just tone down some of the blue stuff that looks a little crazy. And when I see too much repetition, I'm basically just gonna remove a few of the assets and just kind of move back to the area and plug in something a little more unique, just to kind of make sure it looks a little better. But otherwise, this is a very fast process. It's not as fast as just mass zoning, of course, but the end result is also going to look better. You're just gonna feel you have more control. The tree coverage is gonna be pretty heavy here though, so lots of the finer details would be lost anyways. And seeing as this is meant to be a pretty cookie cutter suburb, something you need to be able to ideally create again and again and again, I think it's good to utilize trees because they just kind of cover up things and make it look nice without it taking too much time. A small thing we can do to just make it even a little nicer though, which I don't think I'm gonna do throughout the city, is you can use manipulation mode to just kind of drag out some of these nodes here, which is gonna add a bit of a curvy bit. Something that might be able to work as well is just grabbing a small cul-de-sac and just kind of adding that instead. So here, for instance, it kind of has the same vibe, although it also looks a bit like a small roundabout. But you know, it can work as an alternative because dragging out stuff with manipulation mode is going to take a lot of time. As always, the vanilla oak tree is a winner in terms of adding a thick layer of tree coverage. So usually I'll just kind of spam with a brush without anarchy on, so it doesn't clip into too much of the existing buildings and other stuff. And then sometimes I'm just gonna grab a different tree, the leafy tree, which I'm really loving to use here. And then with anarchy, I'm just gonna add this one in some of the backyards and whatnot to kind of separate the lots a little more. And that's why I need anarchy. So as you can probably already tell, the detailing is gonna be lost anyways, which is nice. It allows you to just kind of chill with this process and get lots of these suburbs going, which is exactly what we need to, because we need to branch out and get some of this added beyond the 2 highways as well. To maintain some form of road hierarchy and with the size of this area, we're gonna create another national road, which is kind of gonna be like the main connector, the main arterial rather, moving through this area. It's not going to be zonable. It's not going to have any shops or anything located alongside it. It's basically just the main traffic funnel through this suburban area, which we can then branch out many of the suburban streets from, or the suburban alley rather. And as we're moving further away from the city center, we're gonna be less or more lazy, I should say, with how we utilize the space, meaning we don't really care to maximize it in any way. So it's gonna create a lot of dead space in between many of the lots here, where we can just add trees and just have pretty much nothing. But from a performance perspective, it's gonna help you achieve a better scale. Your city is gonna feel bigger without a ton of assets actually having to be placed in here. And we're trying to make it organic and swoopy. Modern suburban planners love swoopy roads and lots of cul-de-sacs. I imagine some of the lots located right next to the sea and to these nice beaches to be a little more desirable. So here I'm going to up the footprint of the buildings quite a bit, which usually in most zones, including this one, adds some nicer looking buildings. And then we're just gonna add all this stuff, and I'm not gonna bore you with the full process in a time lapse, so it's not gonna take too long. Well, for you at least. All of a sudden, we've got ourselves a city, and it didn't take all that long. Obviously, if you zoom in, you're gonna notice some oddities and whatnot, but from afar or even just from this distance, I really feel these suburbs work out perfectly, and they feel like suburbs stats-wise as well. So this massive area is home to 142 residents. Now, I even went through the trouble of adding districts to every inch of the city, so I think we're gonna take a little tour. So this large, sprawling area is called North Shore. North Shore is home to 292 residents, and the name is pretty much just a geographical feature. It's north of downtown, and it's very much along a shoreline. Moving south, we've got Brookville, which is home to 83 residents. Now, Brookville is named after Brookville Drive, which interestingly doesn't have the majority of its stretch within Brookville, which I just thought was a fun Easter egg. Moving on to Charlene, and she's technically named after her husband, Chris Shiherlis, so this is another reference. Yeah, I'm sorry. Anyways, 291 residents. Charlene is next to Mary Park, home to 175. Now, I actually thought this would be more, since this apartment complex is a part of Mary Park, but then again, it's not a massive area. If we move a bit further into the center of town, we get this sort of midtown, uptown area called Center City, which is home to nearly 1,900 residents and nearly 400 jobs as well. And this is the last inner city stop before we reach downtown, which is probably the densest area, but given the small footprint of the district in total, it's only home to 759 residents and 400 jobs. We're also for the first time ever seeing a crime notification, which would indicate that it does take quite a while for police cars to reach this area and probably police all parts of the city, which is really interesting because it's a very fun mimic of the real life issue, or at least some of the issues with suburban sprawl, which is the ability of service providers to provide actual coverage to these large sprawling areas. But with all that said, we pretty much just need to wrap up with a bit of detailing of downtown and of course adding the marina. So let's start with the marina because I think that's going to be the most fun part. And it is technically a detailing job as well. It's not gonna really add much in terms of functionality. Starting off, I'm going to attempt to remove some of this sand surface by just right-clicking on some of the edges here, hopefully without accidentally removing the entire surface, because it's pretty sizable. It pretty much fills up the entire inner bay here by meadow. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to carefully get rid of some of it so that we've got a clean slate for the marina. Then I think we'll need a pier and a very simple breakwater branching out from this, I guess, tiny peninsula that the lobster tail is currently sitting on. So this is going to require just a bit of terraforming to get right. So I think the pier we'll be utilizing is going to mainly just be the narrow wooden leisure pier, although we might use the medium one for some of the inner piers before they kind of branch out into individual docks where the ships can, well, dock. So I'm just gonna try to get one segment in place, and then I'm gonna add a bit of an angle. And the breakwater is just gonna be one of the key segments with, I think, one of the rib patterns, potentially this one with the deep rib pattern. So I'm just going to try to align that fairly close to this pier, and hopefully we'll not experience any annoying clipping or other issues. So far it seems to work out all right. Obviously we still have a lot of terraforming to do here, but we're off to a decent start. I think something I'd like to do is probably just maybe lower this wooden pier a little bit, but I'm going to branch out with some additional segments where we can actually dock some boats beforehand, just to get an overall idea of how tall they need to be in relation to the water. Just gonna start by adding these two simple segments, then we'll move into water transportation, because I can grab some floating boats I've snapped off PDX mods. I'm gonna place a few of these just to get an overall idea of the scale of all the boats. Because getting that in place is going to make it just a little easier to actually map out these piers here, and mainly the distance in between them, of course. So I'm just going to do a selection of some different ones, ranging from some of the more sizable all the way down to these small sailboats. And I think this tells us that we could just benefit from having two different distances between some of these piers. Because this current distance is going to work fine for some of the smaller boats, but this sailboat here in particular, as well as this larger one, is not going to be able to face each other on opposite ends. So that would require a bit of an additional distance. And I think we're going to have the main bulk of the larger boats on this segment, this outer segment, and then we can have some more tightly knit piers in this inside segment for some of the smaller sailboats and motorboats and whatnot. I mean, that's that's my idea anyways, but yeah. Wouldn't call myself a marina expert, but I think it's gonna look cool having a bit of a difference between the two segments. We might be able to fit in a warehouse or two, maybe an additional fish-themed restaurant on this small pier. But before we do that, I just want to get a few road connections in place. So I'm gonna drag a small alley real close with Move It to the inner pier. I can't say that word anymore, I'll need to figure something else. I'm just gonna have that road cover this tiny dock here, so we can face some buildings towards it. And then I think for this segment we might utilize a one-way pedestrian street instead. Now once again, I am just gonna map these out quickly and then use Move It to get them real close to these pier segments. Because I'll need to kind of lower that a little bit, because I think it's just a little too tall in relation to the water level here. Especially this segment, but that is going to look a lot better if you have like an inner segment that's already keyed off. So I think I'm just gonna do that so that you guys can see what I'm rambling on about. So I've got it all aligned, and now I'm just going to key off the pedestrian segment as well as the small alley. And then I should be able to grab all of this and just lower it to a more appropriate height. The matching corners here, they don't match all that much, I guess. So I'm hopeful that a bit of manipulation mode might just be able to kind of drag out this node a little bit and make this curvy bit look a little better. There's gonna be a little clipping, but we can fix that by just lowering the pier segments a bit further so that we don't have parts of the this structure kind of clip into it. So let's just see how much that would take. Selecting these two nodes. Oh, it's actually just the railing of the key segment here. So I would be interested in seeing how it looks without the key. I mean, that's actually just better. So let's unkey this segment, I guess. Now we'll need all the narrow piers in place for these smaller boats. With all the nice boats added, I'm actually tempted to utilize the narrow concrete leisure pier instead of this wooden one. Mainly just to do something a little different and try to kind of distinguish it a bit from the fishing port, which almost utilizes the same texture, I feel. So I'm just gonna try. It's a very interesting look indeed with all these concrete pillars. I guess it's built to last. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. Alright, so there might have been some maintenance facilities and warehouses here, but they have long since been converted into this modern seafront view diner instead. Yes, repurposed and redeveloped. So I imagine that maintenance, you know, getting your boat on land for repairs and stuff, that is going to be at a different location. The Meadow Bay Marina is mainly just a recreational one you visit while on holidays, because it doesn't have these other facilities. It does have a bit of surface parking, of course, or I don't know, recreational use. That doesn't sound right, but it serves the marina as well as this little place as well. And seeing how the parking road reacts when you add a key to it, kind of tempted to, you know, upgrade this to a parking segment as well, and just adding a key on one side just to get a bit of additional parking. And we'll just make the little bay here a hotspot for boats, especially during the tourist season. So we're adding one massive super yacht, a few smaller ones, and then lots of these regular boats. And having the hotkey and find it so that I can quickly move through, it's perfect, although I don't want the Coast Guard boat placed anywhere. On the topic of boats, I also found this oil barge on PDX mods. So seeing as we've got a bit of petrochemical export-import stuff going on out here, maybe we can just kind of fit this in. I guess my kind of blunt brute force idea is just to grab the starter offshore oil drinking thingy and just kind of attach it to this side of the port, right opposite the existing oil stuff we've already got, and then just try to, I guess, align this new barge right next to this. Yeah, it's a bit of a rough job, but hopefully it's gonna work without too much effort. To my pleasant surprise, I'm actually able to recolor this barge just to make it less screaming bright. And I think that's about it. Kind of works and adds a little more character to Southport. Doesn't really add any jobs though, because, I mean, we don't have any oil industry. But you know what, I think we're just about ready for the final detailing session, which is going to really tie the entire inner city together. The suburbs are plenty detailed as is, they're just more like the backdrop, adding that actual city scale. But this is the meat and potatoes of the entire city, so it needs a bit of love. So something we're gonna do is map out some of these red brick surfaces throughout much of the sidewalks here in downtown. Now it's gonna be painful work, but it's gonna look the part when it's finished. I don't have to pick the right surface from the beginning because I can always just move in and do the area replacement trick, which is really nice. So I'm just gonna start mapping out some stuff so that we can get the main promenade alongside Water Street in place. Something I will attempt to do though is make sure that I kind of start each surface moving in one specific direction. So that's going to be parallel to Water Street, because if the tiles are aligned in a certain way in the surface, this is one way to ensure that they are aligned in the same direction all across the downtown area. We've quickly just surfaced up the very first block. It's actually two surfaces. One covering this side and one covering the other, because I didn't want to just do the entire block. I want to keep the individual surfaces in place in here, and sometimes I like to keep some of the surfaces that are part of the individual assets in place as well, because it just it makes it look a little more interesting. Now in terms of the detailing here, we're gonna go for some simple planters with some trees and some nice flowers. I've grabbed a beautiful planter pack from PDX Mods, and my plan here is to intermix the 2x8 meters with the 2x2. So I'm gonna be careful about the distance at which I place these things. Can I go for the fence mode with snap to length? Hopefully that is going to kind of allow me to do exactly what I want. It's not, because I don't want them to be right next to each other, but 20 meters is perhaps too much. 19 seems to be just right to get 4 of these within this stretch, which I think is just about right. Yoink, I'll make sure to do the very same on this side, because I can just place the surface afterwards. And we're just gonna eyeball this, more or less. There you go. Then we're gonna switch it to the 2x8. This will feature some flowers instead of some trees. Now these are aligned at a 90 degrees wrong angle, I guess, but we can easily just get that fixed. I find the easiest thing here is basically just to get them in place, sort of aligned, and then just select all of them with Move It to perfectly align them. I think I'm going to skip this location because we've got planters as part of this little park here, and that means I just need to do the 2 right here. A nice thing with Move It is that if you select 2 objects, you're going to get an indicator of the center, so that makes it really easy to kind of align these. Also, there are some storefronts here where people walk in and out, and in those cases I might just move ahead and remove these so that people don't walk straight through them, which I think is going to be the case here, but we'll see. We'll see. It doesn't all have to be perfect. I mean, it is detailing after all. But I think in this particular case, since multiple people are walking through it, it's probably more fun to just get rid of it and replace it with some other prop, which could be, I guess, we could do like a small food cart here on the corner and then add a bit of seating as well. For the tree planters, the nicest solution for the citizens of Meadow Bay would be nice oak trees providing plenty of shade. But in our case, I'm going to utilize a pretty small birch tree because this is one instance where I don't want the tree to cover up any details. I don't want any tree with a large crown to remove all the stuff we're working on down here. So we're going to opt for something a little more slim instead. And then just a simple mixture of some of the cultivated flower bushes for these long and narrow planters. A few nice garden benches here alongside the promenade, and that's pretty much gonna be a wrap up for this specific section of downtown. Obviously we've got a few more blocks of downtown and inner city to fill out, so let's dive in. Now, the magical and terrifying thing about detailing is that there's really no end game. You can continue detailing to your heart's content or until you end up in a straitjacket. And I think I've been close to the latter option a couple of times, especially in Cities 1. So I'm really trying to strike the right balance here, and I think we're pretty much getting there. So most of the detailing has been centered around the downtown core, which kind of makes sense because it is the prime focal point of Meadow Bay, currently at least. As I mentioned before the detailing process, swapping out the surfaces is super easy with the area bucket tool. So we're gonna try just a few things out and see how it looks. Because honestly, this arch-typical Dutch brick actually looks kinda nice, I feel. It's not too in your face, but it's still super unique compared to the regular sidewalk texture. With that said, we're gonna try a few things. Oh man. I mean, this is really nice too, isn't it? So this is a German-inspired sidewalk from the St. Pauli Fish Market Road in Hamburg. Oh, that is a beautiful. It's a little more in your face, you know. It's more contrasty than the brown one. And obviously we could kind of mix the two, but I like to have sort of a uniform sidewalk theme throughout much of the downtown. I imagine, you know, some renovations taking place where they kind of try to renew a few things, make it look nice, lure in some businesses again if all the mom and pop shops had been closed due to a local Walmart, for instance. There's also this version widely used across France, apparently. And it's a little more subtle, meaning that the actual stones, the cobble or the bricks, they're much smaller, so the texture is less noticeable from afar. It's a little more contrasty compared to the dark red that kind of dominates the actual buildings here in downtown. After testing out a few options, I think I'm gonna stick to the Hamburg one. It just has a really nice brick texture to it, which, yeah, I think it just kind of works. With one exception being the City Hall plot. I kind of want to switch that up to something that's a little brighter and a little more striking. So maybe this French-inspired sidewalk from the Champs-Élysées. I butchered that, in Paris. Champs-Élysées? Champs-Élysées? It's not too bad, is it? And just as I'm about to highlight another exception being the fire station plot, what is even going down? How can this burn down? The fire station is right there. What is this guy doing? Hello? There's the... Is the fire station unable to service these row houses for some reason? Or the fire engines, rather? This is weird. They just kind of drive by without actually stopping the fire. While a deeper economic simulation allowing for public worker strikes would be really awesome, I'm guessing that wasn't the issue here. So if you've encountered something similar and might know a fix to it, please let me know, because I'm a little scared of the next fire. Anyways, I think it's about time we start wrapping up this marathon video, and we still need to complete the downtown park. Now, I've had a few ideas throughout the build, but seeing as downtown is a really buzzing, thriving place without too many empty lots, some beautiful murals, and a very active recreational marina right nearby, I do imagine Meadow Bay to be like a real touristic hotspot in the summer months especially. So I think something that kind of caters to tourists and like recreational activities or something fun for the kids might just be a good fit. And we've got a couple of pretty awesomely detailed options through the Bridges and Ports DLC. So we have a park featuring a merry-go-round, a carousel park, which looks really nice. We've also got an old Ferris ride park, which is probably even nicer. I would like to utilize the haunted house park, but That's a very specific thing. Oh no, downtown is burning. We've got a fire tanker on the way, and I am hoping that it can reach 31 Castlewood Street in time. Come on. Or rather, I'm hoping it's actually going to do something as it approaches the building. It's dropped a bit of water, a bit more, all of the water, but no, the building is still on fire. I wonder if I've loaded into the new patch. I am recording this on a Wednesday, the day of the patch, so oh man. I did the only humane option I knew, which was to demolish the burning building with all occupants inside and just replace it. That's gonna be my fix for now. Let's fill out the park with the old Ferris wheel park. And I'm just gonna do a bit of quick detailing. Added a few trees, a few paths, and replaced the main texture, or surface rather, under the Ferris wheel with the same one we're using for the downtown area. And that's it. I'll be honest, I'm super happy with Meadow Bay and what we've achieved in this single build. I think we've struck a pretty good balance between detailing and scale. If you lean more towards scale, obviously you'll have more city to play with. If you lean towards detailing, you'll have more nice looking areas. But I think the balance is just right here. The focal points look nice, and the things that are just less important are just less important. But as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching and all the wonderful feedback and input I usually get on my videos. I don't get to respond to everything, but it affects me subconsciously and the decisions I make. Well, sometimes at least, other times the wackiness kind of just takes over. I'll be wrapping up with some final cinematics of Meadow Bay, and just mention that I plan on doing more of this type of content in the future, these standalone builds. Some of them might turn into mini-series or fully fledged series if there's enough, I guess, demand and feedback on it. So if there's something specific you think Meadow Bay could really need, or a specific type of other small city you want me to build, let me know in the comments. And consider subscribing if you don't want to miss out on more of this content. Thank you all so much. Goodbye.